私の君、君が必要だったんだ。一緒に風呂には入れないけどな。
So here we are at the last episode of Mysterious Disappearances. A finale that I was worried they wouldn't be able to pull off. Now then, I do have a lot of thoughts on this particular episode, and I will be sharing them in detail here, as I compare the ending of the anime to the manga once I pass final judgment, at least on the anime as a standalone in terms of its writing. So, buckle in for the ride. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And what I was worried about with this episode is that it would try to do way too much by balancing the story of the Cat King with their new anime original material of sending Oto back over to her world. So I was really worried about what they would do here. But we are actually able to quickly sidestep a lot of that, with Ren coming to terms with the Cat King saying, hey look, you're not going to have to deal with me much longer. We are leaving. Ren is determined to sacrifice himself in order to generate the ticket and the energy to send Oto back to her world, and Oto comes to learn that Ren is not really her brother. Instead, he's the one who reached out to her and helped bring her to this particular world after she seemingly lost everything on the other side. Back at her place, which, when we look back to it, this is post-World War II Japan, or at least at the end of World War II in Japan. So Oto's pretty much lost everything, meaning that her brother truly would be the one big thing in her world. He would be her world. And by her going back to that world without her brother, it's like losing everything, but it's the place that she belongs. What I enjoyed about this episode is that by shelving the Cat King, which is a little bit irking to me, but whatever, by shelving that plot line and instead focusing on the relationships between the characters, between Oto, Red, and Sumireko, we're actually able to get into the real heart of this story. That this is a tale of siblings, or pseudo-siblings, who are lost out of time and out of place, meeting up with a girl who didn't really have anything going for her until she met them and was finally able to overcome the obstacles, the writer's block that had held her back from being the person that she wanted to be and writing the stories that she wanted to write. By meeting up with Ren and Oto, Sumireko has been empowered to once again face her problems head on and try her hand once more at being an author. And we see that success right there. And I absolutely love that we get to see that she now has 2 books published, traditionally published at that, and that she feels absolutely fine with that. She's also been able to meet up again with the woman in the traveling bookstore and share her story and get catharsis there as well, as her story has been accepted by the woman, and not only that, that story becomes the key to saving Ren as well. Because you see Ren as a true curiosity, an element, a being that is not even supposed to exist in any world at this point. There's only one way that he can be given purpose. The only way that he can have reason, meaning, belonging, is if someone else from that world truly accepts him and cannot go on without him. Oto gave him form, allowing him to exist for her, but because she did not belong in this particular world and timeline, she could not remain. Therefore, Ren could not remain either. But by Sumireko saying that she needs him, that she can't go on without him, this means that now, as a curiosity, he can be given, again, full form, meaning, and being, and can exist with her in this particular world. Which then, as the episode ends, it sets up things for a potential season 2, should they get the funding, should they get the green light to do so. Not exactly sure if they'll get it, unfortunately, considering how wildly the story deviated from the manga source material, but if it's popular enough over in Japan, then we could see a second season. We'll just have to see what time has to say. But with the ending of this episode, with Ren being accepted by Sumireko, she knowing that he's got a big crush on her, and she's all like, I'm not taking a bath with you, but you are incredibly important to me. We then get the setup for the awkward romance that is supposed to blossom as the story continues. And we then have a setup for Ren and Sumireko to go up against the Cat King should the story continue on. And because this anime was being produced at a time where in the manga, Oto really takes a back seat, Oto can then be reasonably put to the back seat on the back burner to then show up in a really interesting way later on. If this world's and timeline's Oto should emerge, or if Oto from the other world does make her way back to Ren. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Also, I really do like that we get Oto making a video for Sumireko apologizing for everything that she's done to Sumireko throughout the series, and how she's called her apartment wife, has kind of used and abused her a couple times, really spoken down to her, punched her in the boob, all these kinds of things. You get catharsis, you get resolution for the characters here, and they're able to all move on in their own respective ways. Life is able to move on in a better way now that they've put everything on out there. But the truth is out there, they've accepted each other, they've forgiven each other, and everyone is now where they are meant to be. It's a pretty beautiful ending to the season, or to the series, depending on how things pan out behind the scenes in production. So what I will say is that as far as a finale goes, this is good. It actually does everything that it's supposed to do, and I feel like it does it reasonably well. The one problem, though, for me is that knowing the manga, just knowing what there is actually going on, yeah, I personally don't like how this is resolved. So here is where I'm going to give you a spoiler warning for stuff that is in the manga. Buckle on up. So, what we actually get during the King of Cats arc is that the King of Cats absolutely wrecks Ren. And Ren needs to be basically rebuilt by the old guy that's hanging out in the in-between space. What we learn later on is that he's actually not some kind of god or anything like that, what he kind of hints to in the finale. No, he's actually one of many humans who work in this in-between space to keep it free, to prevent people and curses and monsters from other worlds and timelines from muddling up the multiverse. And rather than really just doing his job, he's making some money and cashing in favors on the side by providing means to various peoples, monsters, and curses that are passing between the different worlds. So he is helping out Ren for reasons that we're still not quite sure of, but he's definitely sticking his neck out there by doing things that he's not supposed to do. And this is at least good for Ren because this saves Ren from dying. Meanwhile, Sumireko begins working with everyone else. All of the different heroines that you've met along the way, as well as the many different cursed objects that have been gathered along the way, are all put to use in a big climactic hunt and fight against the King of Cats, which then reveals what her backstory actually is, why she acts the way that she does. She's been collecting curiosities, but very more specifically, the souls of cats, because she believes that humans lie to cats, imprison cats, and hurt cats. And the reason why is because of her own misconception at the end of her own life, which is a really sad thing. It's actually one of the most heartbreaking things that I've read in any manga, as you get the perspective of this beautiful cat, from kitten to elderly cat who finally kicks the bucket, as she lives with this loving family, but then begins to realize she's always thought of them as other cats, but then she realizes they're not cats. They grow different than me. They act different than me. I'm getting old while they just seem to continue to be beautiful and strong. Why would you lie to me and make me think that you were my family? You're not cats. And so she feels betrayed, becomes this vengeful spirit that then starts kidnapping other cats from people and creates this massive army to go against anyone who would dare try to restrain cats or restrain her. And she's got to be defeated defeated, and she's defeated in a beautiful way by Sumireko appealing to the relationships that all these other cats have had with their previous owners. Because cats, even though they act cold and aloof many times, do care about the people who raise them, especially if they've been raised well. So the King of Cats is defeated and reunited with the last living relative of her old family. The day is saved, Ren is repaired, and everyone goes on to celebrate. But this is then where we learn who Ren really is, because the patchwork job isn't enough. Ren is going to die because, again, he is a curiosity that doesn't belong in this world. Everything that the anime has revealed about him and Oto, largely correct. But there is an aspect. There's a reason why his eyes cause people to burn. Because he is a curiosity born of the end of World War II, specifically that of wreckage, burning, and karma. The destruction brought to Japan by the vengeful Americans is embodied in part by him. At least that is what the manga is heavily implying. To my knowledge, it has not been 100% confirmed yet, but across multiple chapters, you begin to realize this is who he is. This is where he came from. These are his powers. And when he saw that the real Ren had died, he felt compassion for Oto and took on the visage of her older brother and pretended to be him. But by doing so, he rejected his very nature, meaning that he no longer belongs in old World War II Japan. So he and Oto now became lost objects, careening through the multiverse and ending up in Sumireko's place and time. So Oto, she does have a place to return to, which is why she's not immediately falling apart and there's time to save her. Ren, on the other hand, does not belong anywhere now. He is falling apart. He is dying. And the manga suggests that the one thing that might be able to save him is the relationship that he is growing with Sumireko, as Sumireko does give him a kiss. Ooh. And there is, of course, a swimsuit special and all these other things. The obligatory kimono scene and all these other things. There's plenty more mysteries, curiosities, and adventures to go on. And after the episode with the King of Cats, and where we get to learn a little bit more about Ren, the story does change more to this chase to try to rescue Ren from his inevitable fate. And as we come to learn more, the hangman's noose that you see at the Kisaragi station is not just idly sitting there. It is actively hunting other people. There is someone else that the Kisaragi station wishes to transform into a ticket. So things are ratcheting up. The stakes are getting even bigger now as the manga progresses. So that is where this story should be going. And because I am a fan of the manga, I really like what is done. When you're able to read the story all the way through, it does have a very solid narrative. A lot of the characters are really great. The awkward romance between Sumireko and Ren, I would say, is a little bit forced. But, well, what are you going to do? I can definitely break down why it doesn't work. And no, it doesn't work just simply because he's short and she's got big boobs. No, in fact, he's actually the older being, but he's an entity of fire and destructive karma. Anyways, all of that aside, it's kind of weird, it's kind of forced. We're moving on. Despite its flaws, I really, really do enjoy the manga, and I definitely highly recommend anyone who wishes to get more of the story, and especially to see what the King of Cats combat should look like, read the manga. It is excellent. But that takes me, again, to the end of this season, or potentially of the series. How is it overall? In terms of it being a one-for-one adaptation, it is fairly good. It changes at the end with the finale. I think that the finale did everything that it was supposed to do, and I enjoyed that. I think that ultimately, in order to get more of the emotions that they would have wanted to have with the finale, that there would have had to have been more time spent with Ren and Oto and Sumireko to really bring out who they are as individuals and what their dynamics are, which would then put the mysteries to the back burner, which would kind of take away from the from the central elements, or I should say more like the trappings, the settings, and some of the central elements, really, of the overall story, meaning that what has brought them together is these mysteries. This is what Sumi Reiko has needed to become a better author. Ren and Oto's lives are all mixed up within these mysteries, so it's kind of hard to take that away from them and just focus on their relationships. Ultimately, this is the kind of story that I think would have ultimately benefited from a traditional anime release being that of 24 to 25 episodes. But seeing now as that the industry has largely moved to 12 to 13 episodes, there was never really going to be enough time to really bring out the mystery and the horror and the relationships. As a result, what could have been a very powerful finale is kind of undermined a bit by the pacing. So in terms of an adaptation, it's largely very good. It delivers everything it was supposed to do, and even though its finale was anime original material, it was pulled off fairly well. It does deviate significantly from the manga, but if this is the end, then it's a good enough ending. But if you really wanted it to be powerful, you definitely needed more time. The pacing needed to be better. We needed greater character development. But for what we got, in terms of what the plot required, everything was right there. A very serviceable, enjoyable story, in my opinion. This is where we come to kind of splitting the hairs. What makes the difference between a really good story and just a good story? And here's the thing. Stories that are just okay, just good, are absolutely fine. In fact, that's most stories that people consume and enjoy and move on with their lives, feeling better for it. They were entertained. It was a good use of their time. Now it's time to move on to the next thing. And that's absolutely okay. Hey, but what could have made Mysterious Disappearances even better is, again, that greater focus on the characters. A story truly lives or dies on the strength of its cast. Then also, I think we could have benefited a little bit more from solid world building that was really, truly explained and explored. Again, more time to spend with these characters in the world and the pacing. And because this is a show that was supposed to promise us mysteries and horror, it needed more time to build up the tension and to stretch out those moments of horror, those moments of suspense, in order to truly deliver on the impact of the resolution for each mystery and the reveal of each monster. Those are all nuances that you, as a writer, are going to learn as you write and explore your own stories. No one gets it right off the bat. So, with all that being said, this has been my review and analysis for the finale of Mysterious Disappearances and of the series in general. And if you'd like sometime in the future, I can definitely go through the manga as we get more of it and show you just where this incredible story is ultimately going. But until that time, I'd like to know what your thoughts are, and also, if you're looking for other great stories that you would like to read, more than just simply good, then please check out the books I've published. Links for them are in the description below, or you can check out the other videos that we have here on our channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
私は幸せに暮らしています。
いつか音がすみれ子さんの新刊を買いにこの店に来るような気がします。